Today is the day that apparently a whole lot of you have been waiting for. In honor of hitting 100,000 subscribers, which thank you by the way, that is an absolutely crazy milestone that I can't say I ever thought would be a possibility, but because of that I figured it was about time to finally do what has been by far my most requested video, a workshop tour. I swear I haven't been intentionally holding out on you all. It's simply that this place is either occupied by something I can't show you yet, or is just in general in a state of complete disarray that I don't particularly want immortalized online. But today the stars have finally aligned and I've managed to whip this place into a reasonable level of tidiness. So without further ado, welcome to the Real Life MM's prop shop. When you walk in the door, you're met with a sight that I'm sure most of you are very familiar with seeing at this point. This tends to be my main filming area, although it's really set up to be a multi-purpose space. I try to keep the main table clear so that I can use it for whatever the week calls for, whether that's unboxing and testing out a new printer, or painting an entire suit of armor. The back wall is more of an alcove that has always been referred to as droid parking, although there are a few droids that are too tall to live there. The main table is this husky workbench. It's a really sturdy surface for me to work at or have printers running on when I need. It's also height adjustable and on wheels, which works perfectly for this space since I'm always having to move things around depending on what I'm working on and filming, like being able to move it out of the way to get a better look at all of these droids. Most of the things that you're going to see in this workshop do have their own videos on them if you'd like to see how they were made, none more famous probably than Roger himself. Beside him we have the unfortunately nameless Squire droid, but that's the one that's a multicolor print. And for right now, because honestly this area always kind of changes, we have the Sith probe droid and Leap the LEP servant droid. Behind all of them on the wall, we have my ever-expanding droid patch collection. These are all of the charity patches that Droid Division puts out at multiple times a year. There's also some Droid Builder UK ones, and any other cool ones that I maybe have gotten from different conventions from people that I've met. But the most special one probably has to be this All Droids Welcome patch, because it's the one that I got the opportunity to design based on my droid squad. But really there's just so many cool designs and I absolutely love looking at this wall, and all the patches are just attached to these felt panels using some stick-on Velcro. But moving on from there, underneath the TV, we have all of these smaller droid projects. A lot of these are multicolor 3D prints, and then on the end you just have this Admiral Akbar bust, and then my ID-10 droid. And in front of all of those is something I didn't actually make, but it is a mouse droid. Feels right at home with everyone else though. And then we have Mr. Clone Trooper, which yes, I know I did say this was droid parking, but the concept of being able to have a battle droid and then a clone trooper balancing out either side of the TV was too appealing of an idea to not follow through with, at least for right now. He might be replaced in the future with another droid that I will inevitably end up making. Some of the strapping is also coming undone, so his armor isn't quite as lined up as it was when I first built him, but that's going to be a project for another day. In front of him on a mini Dejeric table is my life-size Jar Jar Binks bust. He is one of the more recent additions to the collection. This might be more of a temporary spot for him, but for right now it's working out really well. Something that is not temporary though is one of my favorite pieces still, and that is IG-12 and Grogu. These guys are still some of my favorite paint jobs I've ever done, which for me is the most enjoyable part, so that's kind of how I end up ranking my favorite projects. IG's design in particular just allowed me to do a lot more of an interesting and complex painting job. I mean, it literally took me an entire week just to weather him, which is something that would maybe take me a day on any other droid. He's also the first project that I ever finished in this workshop, so he's always going to have a special place. And right now beside him is my SV08 Max with Kyber the Loth Cat sitting on top of it. Also finally got around to wall mounting one of these Home Depot panels that obviously looks like the Death Star wall panels. But Kyber the Loth Cat here is one of the few things in this workshop that does not currently have a video, mainly because he was kind of the test run and I do fully intend on making a second version and filming that entire process. I had to rush build him in under a week, so did not have time to film him, but hopefully the second one will be something that I get to check off this winter. Across from all of that on this small wall, we have my Armorer tool display that is framing this laser engraved Mythosaur skull that I got the opportunity to get Emily Swallow to sign. These are my original Armorer tools for my costume, but they are now kind of in museum preservation mode, and then I went ahead and built the rest of them for this display. I have since built multiple versions for costume purposes. Beside that, on another one of those Husky workbenches, I have my Prusa XL and Core 1. Underneath that, I have this IKEA cart that I printed a bunch of inserts to help organize it, and this ends up holding a lot of the tools and things that I need when I'm working and filming in this area. It helps me with keeping the table completely cleared off, and I can also roll it around if I need to move it and use it for something else. Behind the printers, we have this wall organizer that I equally use for display purposes and storage. On this side of the wall, it is mostly display, especially because the printers aren't always here, and it gives me an interesting backdrop to film in front of. Beside all of that, we have a pit droid. He is also a multicolor 3D print, although he is one that you do not require an AMS or any type of multicolor system to print, which is always my favorite. So if you're looking for a winter project this year, maybe consider printing yourself a multicolor pit droid. So right now he's stationed here to greet any possible guests into the workshop. I also printed the base to go along with him. Across from him we have one of my favorite areas in the workshop, and that is my artifact display case area. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I would love to eventually give Luthen Rail a run for his antiquity shop money, and this is my start of that. So this upper display case is a bunch of the smaller prop pieces and artifacts that I've made over the years. I'm always looking to make more because they're just such fun small projects to work on. There are a couple of pieces that I didn't make, like Ahsoka's lightsabers, but they fit in so well with the rest of it that I just have them displayed in here for now. The next shelf is a bit of a mishmash right now. I have a Dune Chris knife and then a bunch of these Gentle Giant mini busts. I don't currently have any artifacts to go on these shelves, and these all kind of fit perfectly and look really good here, so that's why they're living here right now. And then underneath that, I have the T6 shuttle model. Beside this display area, I have what I can only unfortunately describe as a death shrine. Obviously, you can tell that I'm generally sticking to making Star Wars stuff all of the time. That is what I'm interested in the most, but Death's props from Agatha all along are my aesthetic perfection. I absolutely had to make her dagger. It is one of my favorite prop designs ever, and I also had to make her crown, but I didn't know how I wanted to display her crown, so I just ended up making an entire bust because that's how my brain works. And since they are the only two off pieces in this entire room, I have them displayed together, hence the Death Shrine. But beside all of that, I have my Jedi Holocron tissue box holder, and all of that is sitting on top of this drawer unit, which is where I keep all of my extra painting supplies. Because on the other side of that display wall is another work area, but more specifically what I tend to use as my painting area. It's where I have all of my airbrushes and spray booths set up, although hopefully this one will be getting replaced by a custom larger one that has been on my to-do list for way too long. And then to the side I have a couple of metal shelves that is mostly storage, not particularly organized either, so don't look too hard. But this is where I get to store things like resin bottles, unpainted pieces, any extra random fabrication materials, cardboard boxes for shipping out stuff, and then of course more painting supplies and specifically things that have to do with more airbrushing. My Illumoluster bottle, which is the most precious bottle in this entire workshop. But underneath that shelf and more in line with my spray booth, I have this more open area with a Scatus pegboard attached to the wall, and this is just a really good spot for me to be able to set down any of the pieces that I'm currently painting. The pegboard also stores a lot of the different painting supplies, shop towels, my respirator mask, some airbrushes I don't use as frequently, popsicle sticks, also a place for me to put my headphones on since I typically wear them when I'm airbrushing. On the other side of my spray booth, I have my airbrush station. And yes, I do have quite a few airbrushes. They are different sizes and types, and I also have ones that I will only use for certain paints so that they don't interact badly with each other. Beside that, on the desk, I have an air purifier to try and help with some of the paint fumes, and my A1 Mini, although I have made this a very portable printer that I can take around and use wherever I want, so it's more like it's just chilling on the desk right here for now. Behind that, I have my Tamiya paint collection organized by finish and then color number, and then I have some dagger pieces just hanging out here. These are ones that are partially painted or just painting tests, since this is one of the few pieces that I choose to do occasional prop runs of. And above that, we have a collection of airbrush paints and more model types of paints organized by type and then color. And then on the smaller smaller Scatus board beside all of that, I have some more unusual and specific types of model paints and mediums. In the corner we have even more paint, although this is all craft paint that I will thin out and use with my airbrush for any larger pieces. I was a professional painter for years before I got more into 3D printing and prop making, so a lot of this paint is from that. I've also been a big fan of spending my time painting and not just on mixing colors, so that explains the large color selection. Beside that, we have even more Scatus pegboards. I'm sure you can sense a theme here. I am a huge fan of these. You can print them now, although these ones are the purchased IKEA ones, but pretty much all of the accessory holders on them are 3D printed, and that is why I absolutely love these boards, because you can very easily customize them for whatever your needs are. Beside that, you have the back side of that cube display wall. This side tends to be slightly more for storage purposes, although there is still plenty of display areas. A lot of these things are different prints and projects from various videos. It's also where I tend to sit projects that I still need to paint, because you know, the raw prints still look pretty impressive as is. I also have a lot of my camera gear stored here, or at least gear that I don't grab for as much as some other pieces. This side of the wall doesn't have to be as aesthetic, and I can also reach all of the compartments easier, so it's much more practicality and storage focused. But going back to the main section of the room, I have another display area that I haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet that is also where I tend to tuck my tripod and lighting equipment, so I will move that out of the way first so you can see all of this stuff a lot better. Here we have a collection of just about every type of project imaginable, also an attempt at adding a bit more storage as well. But starting off, we have a Disney Parks Yoda lightsaber right beside the Grand Master himself. Yoda is of course life-size as well, as is the majority of projects in this workshop. He's another one of my all-time favorite pieces that I've worked on. Beside him we have this found parts droid that I randomly found in a sculpture store. It always reminded me of something that Anakin would probably have displayed in his workshop, and I really liked it, so I always like to have it out so that I can see it, but it's just such a cool, unique piece, and I would love to make something similar myself one day. Beside him, we have my custom BD droid that I called BD-27. And then we have my life-size Mando bust, which might actually be the oldest piece in this entire room. It's an extra special piece though, because the pauldron is now signed by Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne. Of all the areas in my workshop, this tends to be the display area that changes around the most, especially the shelf above this section, but for right now it's housing my Shore Trooper bust, the Disney 3PO head that I have deconstructed so that you can see all of the cool components inside, and then the Royal Guard helmet. Beside that, we have another display cabinet. This one's deeper than the white one, so it houses some larger artifacts like Queen Amidala's tiara, a Jedi Temple Guard mask, also some pieces I didn't make myself like Ochi's dagger and this Darth Maul hologram. They fit the vibe though. I also have a genuine Rancor tooth from Roxy the Rancor, a couple of 3D printed Sabacc cards, and then a collection of spark pads. The Battle Droid binoculars are also chilling in here for now. Above this section we have a collection of some Hot Toys figures. These are my Clone Wars Hot Toys. It's again a matter of right now I don't have any specific artifacts for this area, but also putting them in this room is the one chance that I get to be able to see and appreciate these figures. Then above that we have a very interesting collection of Babu Frick, one of Padme's headdresses, an amazing Battle Droid cup, and a couple of awards. This is my Lucasfilm Star Wars Fan Award that I won for this Enfys Nest costume. They haven't run these awards again since, so I guess I'm still the reigning champ. No, but obviously this is an incredible honor, but I'm also a humongous fan that this award is of droids. But next to that is another incredible honor, which was the Toronto Prop Expo Best in Show that Kyber the Lothcat helped me win. Next to that is a door that leads to what could technically be more classified as the actual workshop, or at the very least, the printer room. This is where a lot of the magic actually happens. This is another one of those areas that seems to be constantly changing because I end up switching out a lot of the printers that are in here with newer models that I like more. But for now, this is the setup, and one of my favorite areas in this whole room is this resin printer station that I created with this entire back wall of Scatus boards. I added a 3D 3D printed plate onto all of the shrouds that allows for them to be hung up on hooks that are on the board for easy access to the machine. A decent amount of printers have lift-up covers now, but for the machines that don't, this works amazing. I have all of these printers sitting on top of my tool storage because, after all, this is a workshop. With having an entire wall of Scatus boards, it does give me a ton of space for possible resin storage, as well as space to put all of my most used and reached for tools. I get to have them right above my workbench that I can easily grab and reach for as I need them. The workbench itself is a little chaotic, but what's new? There is in fact method to my madness despite what it might look like. There always seems to be a collection of resin printed pieces that I haven't fully dealt with yet, like these star maps and this new crown print for my death shrine. This one is so much more accurate and in general just a very gorgeous looking print. For resin prints, I use a lot of these plastic trays. I can put pieces on them and move them around easy depending on if I'm removing supports or if it's all of the pieces that I then need to cure. I always have my heat gun out that I use for support removal. Beside my workbench, I have my resin cleanup station. I have the majority of the tables in here covered in black silicone mats for easier cleanup. Also, more of those plastic trays that I mentioned earlier. These ones are where I scrape all of the pieces from the build plate onto to then be cleaned. I have 2 wash stations set up because I like to double clean my prints. It also helps the alcohol to stay cleaner for longer. And then on the end, I have a UV curing station. Underneath that, I have one of my larger resin printers, as well as some more storage, although this tends to be more for 3D printer related tools and accessories. At the end of this table, I have another one of my large resin printers, as well as my X1 Carbon that has 2 AMSs attached to it, which makes it very tall. On the ground, I have my Cobra 2 Max that has a bunch of stuff on it that obviously would get moved out of the way if I was using it, some filament storage in the back corner, and then my Cheaty Plus 4 on the bottom part of this cart that the top has my K2 Plus sitting on. Behind that, we have another kind of aisle of printers, and this is where a lot of the filament storage is. If you are someone who wants to get into multicolor 3D printing, make sure you have a decent amount of space to house all of the spools for the colors that you are inevitably going to want to use for all of your projects. Back here is also where my H2S lives, which is currently busy printing all of these Christmas ornaments that my grandma requested. On the other side, I have this metal shelf with my 2 A1s set up on, and then a whole lot more filament storage. One of my more recent projects and additions being these modular drawers. They use 3D printed parts that you add drawer slides and PVC pipe to, and they just work so well and make finding specific filaments so much easier in my space. On the end of that metal shelf, I have a baker's rack that just works as more storage for whatever I need it for, including more filament. I keep the colors that I don't end up using as much in vacuum bags, so that is why there's kind of a random assortment of sealed and unsealed spools. Some of them also might genuinely be brand new spools, but it's a whole lot easier to be able to see the colors I have to work with when they're out like this. I did just want to mention that this is obviously not all of the 3D printers I have or even use frequently. The others I have set up outside of the workshop or have them as flexible units where I'll maybe set them up on the main table when I need them, but yeah, hopefully that explains the printer situation. And that is a wrap on the workshop tour. That will probably change again in a couple of weeks, but I hope that was worth the wait and was able to help those of you out that have been looking for some setup inspiration. If you saw anything that you were curious about, please feel free to leave a comment, and even with a timestamp, and I will figure out what it is and link it for you if applicable. But that is everything. Thank you again for 100,000 subscribers, and I will see you in my next video.